What's up? What's up? What's up? You are listening to her in the huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. This is your girl, Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports, and I am here today. Cleveland Kate is going to be joining us soon, but I have a special guest with me today. I have Scott Pennyman. Now, Scott is from the Cleveland, Ohio area. Scott, you went to Cleveland Heights, correct?
I did. Cleveland Heights Tiger. I mean, by far the best high school in the Cleveland area, if not the country.
That's a lie. 'Cause, Shaker Heights is one of the best schools in the nation, time and time and time again, one of the
They're
best
okay.
teams in the nation. So,
They're okay.
sorry, I had to, correct you on that. That's not sports related. But
It's
right
all
now,
good.
Scott is in Atlanta, but Scott still follows Cleveland sports. He's a sports reporter, so he gives a lot of great takes. And I'm friends with Scott on Facebook, and I was like, I got to get this guy on the show. He says so many things that make so much sense. So it was important to me to make sure I got him and got his opinions today. So he is our special guest today. Now, Scott, how are you? How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. But like most Browns, I'm still a Browns fan, even though I'm all the way in Atlanta and I cover Atlanta sports. But obviously covering Cleveland sports for so long, and still obviously keeping a close eye to Cleveland sports. As a Browns fan at this point, this morning, well, this afternoon, still not doing well after that one yesterday. Still not doing well.
Yeah, it's not a victory Monday, something that we're not really used to. Well, we're used to it coming from Ohio State, and we'll get to them a little bit later. So we're used to victory Mondays coming from them. But, the Cleveland Browns, last year, that 2023 season, we had 11, victory Mondays. So that was a great thing. But right now, we get to the start of the season and we've only had one victory Monday. And it's just, at times you can be left speechless with what's going on. The Cleveland Guardians, and we're going to get to them later too. They ended up having a game yesterday that ended up being canceled. So we couldn't even count on them to get us a W yesterday. So, going to the Cleveland Browns, Scott, I want you to just give your overall thoughts, regarding the game before we get into the minutia of certain stuff. What are your thoughts about the Cleveland Browns in that game yesterday?
I mean, it's obviously disappointing. I mean, when you look at the Browns' schedule before the season started, this is one of those games where you thought, okay, they could probably go on the road and get a win. I mean, when you look at the Raiders coming in, they were down their two best players, honestly, and Devontae Adams, a wide receiver, Max Crosby, the great pass rusher. So coming into the game, it looked like there was going to be an opportunity to get back on track and get a win. So obviously, when you do that, when you come into a game like that and you fall short, no matter what happened within that game, it's disappointing. And now it leaves you at 1-3, and it really puts you back as far as being able to make the playoffs because most teams who start 1-3 don't make the playoffs. So it's a real tough spot. It's been disappointing. Like you said, we'll obviously get into more about the particulars of the game itself, but right now, just they're in a interesting spot, and they're in the middle of a three road game stretch, and they lost the first one here to the Las Vegas Raiders. So they really put themselves in a tough spot.
Yeah, definitely. This is one game that most people had circled that they wouldn't be able to win.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They had this game circled that this was a game that they would be able to win on the road. You had a friendly crowd. It was unbelievably a lot of Cleveland Browns fans. I'm like, everybody and their mama went out there. I should have went out there, but
For
I
sure.
wasn't able to go. But you had a very friendly crowd to you, and you
Yeah.
thought that this was a W that they were going to be able to get on the road. And then, the announcements came out that Devontae Adams, was not going to play. So, Denzel Ward wasn't going to have to cover him. And then Max Crosby, when he was out, three-time Pro Bowler, everybody breathed a little sigh of relief and was like, hey, we got some advantage here. We already have a struggling offensive line. They don't have to block Max Crosby. And, Denzel Ward can go against a different receiver. He doesn't have to go against Devontae Adams. So, you go into this game feeling pretty good about things. And, I'm just watching this team just kind of collapse every week because you have the ball in your hand the last two games and you can't do anything with it multiple times. you can't do anything with it. And on the last drive, I was in and out. I was listening to the game on the radio because I was covering the Cleveland Guardians. They put the game on the scoreboard, so I was able to, watch some of the game, and then I had to listen to the rest on the radio. But just listening to that last drive, like they had every opportunity, and one of the things that's hurting this team is just all the penalties.
Yeah, I mean, it was a very not a well played game, not a real clean game by the team. I mean, obviously, you have that big fourth quarter play with to deep pass to Amari Cooper, and that's called back by a holding penalty, which I know people got upset about when he was holding Wilkins, Christian Wilkins. To me, it was a hold. I mean, it wasn't any real mystery when you looked at the replay. You could obviously see where he grabbed his jersey. So, yeah, I mean, you mentioned the fact that once again in the fourth quarter they had the ball late. This is the second game in a row now, so that's now six straight fourth quarter possessions, if I'm not mistaken. Six straight fourth quarter possessions where they were down by less than a touchdown, had an opportunity to take the lead, and failed to do so. So that's concerning, right? Because when you have the sort of offense that they have, when you have a quarterback who you gave up so much to get, you like to see those fourth quarter possessions turn into touchdowns, right? I mean, we said that
Yeah.
for years. We said that for years. In the years before Deshaun Watson came, what you wanted was to have the sort of offense and have a quarterback that late in the game, when you need that clutch fourth quarter play, that you can have the sort of offense where you can march down and get those points. So it's disappointing against two what I think coming into these games we viewed as inferior opponents for you to have fourth quarter possessions, multiple, three fourth quarter possessions in each game, and not convert any touchdowns on those drives for various reasons, whether it's penalties, whether it's just poor execution and poor play, whether it's breakdowns, offensive line breakdowns, whether it's bad decisions by the quarterback, whatever. You're not finding a way to get in the end zone late in these games when good teams do, and subsequently they find themselves with a 1-3 record.
Hmm. Yeah, and that's the tragic part of this all. One of the things is we've talked about this before, and that's the absence of Bill Callahan, who went down to Tennessee Titans, correct, to go coach with his
Yeah,
son.
to go play with his son.
And
Yeah,
and now you have an offensive line that's just in shambles, and Dwan Jones looked very promising, and right now he's struggling because you thought that coming out of Ohio State, you're well prepped, you could have a stellar career in the NFL. They tried him at left tackle and didn't work, so he's on the right side,
yeah.
and he is just struggling to block defenders. So you thought with Max Crosby, like I said a few minutes ago, that this line would have a little bit of reprieve, but it's just too many injuries. You got James Hudson out there starting, and
Yeah.
it's just too many injuries right now to have a line that is just kind of Swiss cheese and a little porous, and they're getting beat, and Deshaun Watson is taking a beating, and you don't know if he's going to be hurt this year because of all the knockdowns. And I'm sending the house if I'm going against the Cleveland Browns almost every play. I'm hoping my guys are conditioned because I'm sending the house every time because the line can't block.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things within itself that is just injuries, and how do you conquer injuries? You got Zach Zenner out there, starting as well, Michigan gate, but right now it's just not enough. And I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say. They're playing, one of the reasons why they have to hold is, their blocking isn't the greatest, so they have to have holds. I mean, if they could, not have obvious holds, and, because every hold ain't going to be called, but, because they say it's holding every play in the NFL. But not doing the egregious holds and things like that. The ones that don't get called. But
Right.
I don't see any light at the end of the tunnel with this offensive line, and we all know that down in the trenches, kind of as your offensive line goes, you go, and
Yeah.
you can't develop any type of running game, without any type of blocking scheme, and the running game opens up your passing game, and they're not able to do either one.
Well, look, I mean, this is where coaching comes in, and this is where I look at the two most important people associated with the Browns, coach and quarterback, right? So that's Kevin Stefanski, who calls the plays, and Deshaun Watson. Those are the two who are going to be held responsible for getting the offense where it needs to go. So your offense, your players are your players at this point, right? I mean, there's no acquisitions that you're going to be able to go out and get right now that's going to help you on the offensive line. Your players are your players. So what you have to do is you got to coach them up. And I know just one thing I think that we don't talk about enough is the absence of Bill, of, like you just said, Callahan, who was offensive line coach, who was one of the best offensive line coaches maybe in the history of the NFL. So they had that luxury the last couple of years where they didn't have to worry about it. Now you have a line, not now you have to, now you've, last few years they've had a really strong offensive line. Now they're having the problems that the rest of the NFL has had because an offensive line has been a problem across the NFL for many teams, right? As far as finding good cohesive offensive line play. So to me, what you have to do in those situations are if you're a head coach and you know your offensive line has struggled, and if you're Deshaun Watson and you know the guys in front of you have struggled, that's when you have to get to work. That's when you have to do things to slow down the pass rush. Maybe alter some things as far as the screen game. Invite the rush in, dump it over their heads. That'll slow down some of the rush some. If you're Deshaun Watson, that clock has to go a little faster, right? Maybe design shorter plays that don't take as long to go downfield. Quickly get the ball in the hands of playmakers. Do things to, maybe sort of slow down that pass rush a little bit, get the ball quickly at the hands of quarterbacks. Look, that's why the West Coast offense was created back in the day anyway, right? The West Coast offense was first introduced back in the day with Paul Brown and his offensive coordinator, Bill Walsh. When he was with the Bengals at that time, they invented that offense because they didn't have that good of an offensive line. So what they wanted to do was come up with an offense where the ball can get out of the hands of the quarterback quickly into the hands of playmakers so the offensive linemen didn't have to block that much, right? So what you're going to have is maybe just more quicker, a shorter passing game. And Deshaun Watson has to speed up his clock. Look, I mean, that's all a part of playing the quarterback position. You can't just sit back right now with about 13 games left and go, the offensive line's bad. We can't move the ball. What are we supposed to do? No, you have to figure out ways in order to do that. And part of that is, like I say, play calling and quicker decisions by the guy who has the football.
Yeah, because you talking about, I mean, not saying I'm talking for you, but, getting that ball out within almost 2 to 3 seconds. A lot of time to move this offense. And like you said, the screen game really isn't there, and that's something easy that you can get that running game going. And this is kind of where we miss Kareem Hunt, and he is with the Chiefs now, but at the beginning of the season, I don't know why they kept playing this game, especially when, Nick Chubb is out. Why not give him another look, but they let him go. But he was excellent, in the screen. I understand, he had 500 yards or so last year, but he was able to score when it counted. And he ran hard. And those are some of the things that, you need to get out of Jerome Ford right now. But the window has opened for Nick Chubb to return back to practice. But I just realized Bill Callahan pulled a LeBron James on us.
You mean as far
as to go coach with his son?
Yeah, look, you can't be mad about that, right? I mean, but look, I mean, look, he coached here for 4 years, so all of the players who he coached shouldn't just all of a sudden forget all of his teachings, right? I mean, they should understand if you have a teacher in school for 3 or 4 years, the second she's not your teacher, do you just forget everything she ever taught you? No, I mean, you should still be able to apply those things. I'm for one, and I've been attacked for this so much on social media, right? Because people have said I've been a little hard on Deshaun Watson, right? Because I tell people this all the time about football, and I've covered football long enough to understand this. Every sack and every pressure isn't the offensive line's fault, right? Especially when you're a quarterback and you understand that you're not going to get the ideal blocking, right? I mean, it's not going to happen, right? I mean, for whatever reason, they aren't blocking the way they have in past years. But when, like I just mentioned, when you know that as a quarterback, now's the time to speed that clock up. You've got to make those reads just a little bit quicker because you know the rush is going to be in your face. So sometimes I wonder, and you see the mannerisms from the offensive line, right? I know we're going to get to some of these things a little later. I wonder in a truth moment, if you really sat down with guys like Joe Bitonio, some of those guys up front, and you were to really, they could tell the truth without having any sort of repercussions or anything. I wonder in their minds, are they like, this dude ain't making the reads quick enough. That's the reason it's making us look bad. You know, the ball is designed to come out in these situations, and the ball isn't coming out. Maybe he's because when you look at when Deshaun Watson played in Houston, that was an offense where he made a lot happen with his feet, right? I mean, he would get outside the pocket, he would move around. He was known for holding the ball a little bit longer. He wasn't really the kind of quarterback that was in a real quick passing game, right? He would get back there, move around a little bit, make things happen, sometimes run, sometimes extend the pocket because he felt comfortable holding on to the ball a little bit more. This offense isn't that, right? This is more of a timing, precision offense, play action, run, play action, get the ball out. This is where the read is supposed to go, get the ball out there. And I just wonder if some of the problems is just not necessarily Deshaun being a bad quarterback. I wonder sometimes when I watch these games, does he really fit the offense that Kevin Stefanski wants to run? Like sometimes I wonder, is it just wires crossed a little bit? Because I think a certain quarterback just look at past seasons now. You know, we had offensive line issues last year too, right? We lost about 3 or 4 offensive linemen during the year last year. So when Joe Flacco was playing quarterback, we had what third string tackle, right? Hudson was playing in. DeJuan Jones had got hurt, so we were down to like second or third string offensive linemen. Some guys aren't even on it right now. And Joe Flacco is the kind of quarterback that Kevin Stefanski is used to, you know, drop back quarterback, get the ball out of your hands quickly. And he made quick reads, and we made a lot of big plays within the offense. I just wonder sometimes if Deshaun Watson isn't necessarily the model quarterback that fits Kevin Stefanski's offensive scheme. And so I wonder, is a lot of the offensive line problems due to that? A lot of sacks due to that? And if so, um, they got to figure out something quick because this is kind of too late in the game to, I guess, maybe discover that the quarterback doesn't really fit what you're trying to do.
Do you look at it almost as a combination of both, though? You know, maybe this isn't the right offense, and you brought in Ken Dorsey because you got rid of Alex Van Pelt. And like I said, I'm still trying to figure out how you get fired when you don't call plays or anything like that. But this is a new Ken Dorsey offense. I've always been against Kevin Stefanski calling plays because I think he's a terrible play caller. But you know, you get another offensive coordinator in here, and there hasn't been much that changed with the offense. You know, you look at it, and I often wonder, you know, Deshaun Watson has missed 3 years of playing football. Remember, he missed the two, you know, in Houston. He missed, you know, a season here, and he missed last season too. You know, how much of the rust, you know, how much has been taken away from him, you know, from the game. You know, has the game kind of passed him by a little bit? And, you know, have we already seen the best of Deshaun Watson, you know, from, you know, what I could see and hear yesterday? You know, a lot of the blame is not being placed on him. You know, one of the things is, you know, that interception, you know, it bounced off Amari Cooper's, you know, his numbers.
For
When
sure.
they hit you in the
For sure.
numbers, you're supposed to catch the ball,
For sure.
you know,
For
and, you know, he had a stellar game last year, but the game, not last year, he had a stellar game the week before, but has played terrible, you know, in the first 2 games. So, you know, you had a contract situation with him, and you know, so he's come back, and you know, it's like you forgot to catch the ball, because I was like, you know, I don't know if he doing this in silent protest because they didn't bring Joe back or whatever, you know, because they kept connected so much.
yeah.
But you know, you got your receivers, you know, not being able to make plays too. They're struggling to get open, so that's one of the reasons, you know, why he's holding on to the ball a lot, because they can't get open. And you know, with the line not blocking, you know, you can only escape, so many defensive rushers on the other team, you know, before they're able to catch up to you. So, you know, it's just a recipe for bad sauce. But Scott, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break, okay?
Okay.
So we got to do that really quickly. And you've been listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM, and we will be right back.
How long is this break?
All right, welcome back to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. Remember, you can keep it locked here on your regular radio dial at 95.9 FM. You can listen online at WOVU.org. And you can also download the WOVU app so you can take your favorite personalities with you on the go, such as myself. You're listening to Her in the Huddle. This is Rachel Hill, and I'm here with Scott Pennyman, sports reporter down in Atlanta from Cleveland, Ohio. We're having a really good conversation right now about the Cleveland Browns and some of the issues and things that they're having right now. They are a 1-3 team, and they are supposedly in the easy part of their schedule. But one of the things we know is it's hard to win in NFL, no matter how easy your team is supposed to be. And yesterday they dropped another egg out in not LA, but Las Vegas with a very friendly crowd to them. A lot of people went out to Vegas, to go party and also attend that game. So you can't really say, I mean, there was a lot of, LA fans there too, but, Las Vegas fans, but, it kind of was a Cleveland takeover of Vegas. So one of the things that I wanted to get to, Scott, was I wanted to get to this defense. They're getting cooked right now. And that's definitely not a good thing. So, I don't know if it's the scheme. I've always been the type of person that, I want to see, man to man, no zones or anything like that. But right now, this defense is getting cooked. And then one of the issues you have is Myles Garrett is hurt, so you can only put him in for so many plays. It's just so crazy to me how, injuries happen in NFL, but just especially when they happen in the beginning of the year, when you're trying to establish yourself as a team, you're trying to get some, quality wins in and things like that. It just kills you. And to, not have Myles Garrett out there on every defensive snap or almost every defensive snap, this is one of the things that's hindering the team and, hindering them from being able to, play well defensively. What are your thoughts about this defense, Scott?
So I think when you really look at it, right? So you look at, and I think sometimes we have to redefine in today's NFL what's a good defense, right? Because gone are the days of the Baltimore Ravens or the 2000 Ravens or the 85 Bears where you could have defenses that would allow 3 points in a game or 6 points in the game or could really shut down offenses like that. The NFL has changed. So I think we really have to take another look at what we consider to be good defense. So look at the last couple of weeks, right? So the final score against the Giants, wasn't that one 21-15? Was that the final or something like
Mm-hmm.
that?
Yeah.
And then so yesterday they lost 20-16.
Yeah. Well, they're
When you
not,
look,
allowing a lot of people to score a lot of points, except for, the Cowboys. They got up 33, but nobody else has scored more than 21. So I'm
right,
sorry, I didn't
so
mean to cut you off.
no, yeah. So I mean, I don't really look at it as they've played terrible so far, right? I mean, just think about the game yesterday against the Raiders. They gave up 20 points and they actually scored points on defense. They got the scoop in the score. They're going for a touchdown. So I don't think they've been terrible on defense. Gardner Minshew only threw for 130 yards yesterday, 14 for 24 for 130 yards. So I didn't look at it like they were getting scorched, right? But yeah, they did give up more yards on the ground than you would like to because I think they ran for like 150 some yards against the Browns yesterday. So you definitely want to tighten up what they can do on the ground. But I think that from a defensive mentality, you have the mindset if we can hold a team in today's NFL to around that 20-point mark, we're supposed to have the kind of offense that we think is going to put up enough points for us to win. And so if you get to the fourth quarter and you've given your offense a chance to go win the game, if they have multiple possessions to go win the game, I feel like as a defense, you've done your job. You've put your team in a position where your offense can go take the win. And I think they've done that the last few weeks. They got blew up against the Cowboys. Make no mistake about it. That was a bad game. That was a terrible effort. They were really good in Jacksonville. And I think the last couple of weeks, they've been okay. I think they've played decent defense the last few weeks. If you had an offense that could put up the points that you thought they'd be able to put up heading into the season. So with the offense, not really, I think last two games they've only scored, but not even 20 points. So when you have that sort of offensive effort, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense to be great. They haven't been great, but I still don't think they've been that bad if you have the kind of offense that could score some points. But with the offense playing how they've been playing last couple games, it puts a lot of pressure on the defense to be able to come through and like pitch shutouts or keep them under 10 or 14 points, which in today's NFL, that's really hard to do. The Raiders don't have an explosive offense, but they do have an NFL offense. They have NFL players, and they're going to find a way to score some points. So,
yeah, and Antonio Pierce, that's the Raiders head coach, right?
yeah, Antonio Pierce.
Yeah, and he said that he was going to run the ball. So, he said if he was going to run the ball, why aren't you playing to prevent the run? So, I don't know what type of defensive scheme they came in there with, but, and Gardner Minshew last year, remember, they did win the game against Indy, but he carved them up for over 300 yards. So, that's one of the things that you kind of were on alert for. What type of game is he going to be able to have against the Browns? Because he was very successful last year, even though they lost the game. So I'm glad that he wasn't able to go off. But yeah, this defense is holding people, down points. Nobody scored more than, like I said, 21 points, I believe. So, if you're holding them down, you got to score some points, and that's one of the things that, this offense it seems like they're allergic to the end zone. And then yesterday, the scoop and score doesn't count because of the holding penalty, an 82-yard penalty. So, it's called back because this team is one of the most undisciplined teams in all of the NFL. So that got called back. And then after that, you do put a touchdown on the board, and Dustin Hopkins, who, is very, very, very reliable for you, misses the extra point. So at the end of the game, when you're in a situation where all you need is a field goal to tie the game and go to overtime, you need a touchdown at the very end. So, football is a series of plays, it's a team game, but you can't be missing extra points because that is one of the things that directly, was a tie. It forced your team to have to put up a touchdown. And we know that this team is not good at getting touchdowns. So once again, this team had the ball in their hands at the end of the game. And we saw what happened, last week against the New York Giants as well. You got the same situation. So your team is struggling. You got to hit that. You can't miss that. You got to put your team in the best situation to be able to succeed. And that's one of the things I wanted to ask you. Do you feel like Kevin Stefanski, two-time coach of the year, is putting his team in a situation to succeed and, playing up to everybody's strengths? Because do you feel like he's putting Deshaun Watson in a situation where he's playing to his strengths and putting him in a position to succeed?
And I kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. I think obviously coaching himself too. If you were to talk to Kevin Stefanski, he knows he's got to be better, and that's where I wonder.
He says that every week.
Yeah, for sure. Like I mentioned earlier, I just wonder if sometimes the wires are a little bit crossed. I wonder if the sort of quarterback that Deshaun Watson is fits with what Kevin Stefanski wants to do. So I think a decision has to be made because I don't care if he throws 10 interceptions next week against Washington. Deshaun Watson is the quarterback, right? I mean, very few people in that building have the job security that Deshaun Watson has. Maybe just D and Jimmy Haslam, but are only two people that have more job security than Deshaun Watson has because they own the team. He still do almost $100 million of guaranteed money. He's going to be the quarterback. It doesn't matter. So if Kevin Stefanski doesn't find a way to make Deshaun Watson as effective as possible, it ain't going to be Deshaun gone. That's all I'm saying, right? I mean, so I think if you're Kevin Stefanski, you have to figure out ways to be able to – I don't care if you need to go back and look at the old Houston Texans playbook and do some of the things that Deshaun is more comfortable with, whatever you got to do, you have to do whatever it takes because Deshaun Watson is the most important player on the roster. I know Myles Garrett, he's not the best player. Myles Garrett, I believe, is the best player, but Deshaun Watson is the most important player because if he's not comfortable in being who he needs to be, then the rest of the team isn't going to move the ball. So if you're Kevin Stefanski, you have to come up with schemes that Deshaun Watson has absolute comfort with, even if that means scrapping the entire offense right now and putting in an entire playbook full of plays that Deshaun Watson wants. Because everyone's job out there in Berea depends on Deshaun Watson and how he plays for the next 13 games. That's Kevin Stefanski. That's Andrew Berry, because Andrew Berry is the one who brought him here, right? So both of those two would be fired before Deshaun Watson would be cut or traded, right? He has the most job security of anyone. So if it's on Kevin Stefanski to come up with ways to maximize the effectiveness of Deshaun Watson within the offense and really get the offense rolling. Because if that doesn't happen, he's going to be the one who's going to take the fall. Let's be real. So yes, I mean it is a lot is on Kevin Stefanski to just and he's a smart guy, right? I mean, so he needs to come up with ways to just maximize Watson's effectiveness. Period. Because the future of his job and the rest of the front office probably depends on it. Because Deshaun Watson ain't going nowhere. He ain't going nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
He's the quarterback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very true. How long do you think it would take? You still got after the end of this season, you got 2 years with this experiment. He's two-time coach of the year. How long would you give him?
I don't think. I mean, two-time coach of the year. I mean, I'm not. I think a lot depends on how if they can get on the same page or not, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't want to waste any more time, any more seasons. So if let's say they win, let's say they finish 6-11 this season, and it's a disappointing season, and everybody's mad about what happened. I think you have to get everybody down at a table and go, okay, Kevin, what's your plans for the future of this offense? Are we going? We have 2 more years left of Deshaun Watson, guaranteed, right? You own that money. I don't care what happens. He's owed that money. So Kevin Stefanski is a smart coach. Andrew Berry is a smart general manager. What can we do? What kind of players do we have to put around Deshaun Watson? What sort of offense do we have to install in order to just maximize what he does best? Just to try to bring out as much of that Houston in him as you possibly can. Now, if at the end of the season, if Kevin Stefanski's like, look, he's not my kind of quarterback, and I can't, and then if he can't figure that out, then maybe he won't be the coach moving forward. I think that's terrible because I think he's the best Browns coach since Marty Schottenheimer. I think that'd be terrible. It wouldn't be what I would do, but that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do if they can't get on the same page. If he can't get on the same page with his very, very high paid quarterback. So I think if you're asking me a time, I think after this season, they're going to have a talk and just really just try to make sure everyone thing and everybody is on the right page. And if they can't do that, then, like I said, Deshaun Watson won't be the one gone.
Yeah, like you said, everybody's job is contingent on what he's able to do. So you think that
For sure.
he would put him in the best situation because I want to keep my job. So
We're going to have to.
we're going to have to take another break really
Okay.
quickly. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We're going to be right back. All right, welcome back to Her in the Huddle, WOVU and 95.9 FM. This is your girl, Rachel Hill, the First Lady of Sports, and I am here with Scott Pennyman, a sports reporter out in Atlanta, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, and we are having a great conversation about the Browns right now. We did have some good news, some news that we knew at the beginning of the season, but the practice window has opened up for Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb possibly could be playing this week. Now we got the Commanders coming up, Scott, and it doesn't appear to be it's going to be any easier because right now it seems like things with Jaden Daniels are kind of clicking. You know, Heisman Trophy winner from LSU, and right now he's out there having the Commanders looking not too bad. They won yesterday against the Cardinals, right?
Yeah, oh yeah, they won big.
Yeah.
42-16, I think was the final. Yeah, they won big.
Okay. And then they were on Thursday Night Football, right? The week before
I can't remember their game before that, but I think they won.
against Chicago, I think, right?
Yeah, it was some. Yeah, I can't remember. I can't remember actually their last game before that, but I do remember them winning big yesterday though.
Yeah. So, this isn't, so like Dion says, you look good, you feel good, you play good, they pay good. So right now you got the Commanders looking like, they're a team that want to get out there and win. And you got a
Yeah,
quarterback, who, is looking kind of good for his rookie season. So, I am kind of like, oh, this might not be, a great game either, going on the road, after that, they have another road game, I believe that's against Philadelphia. So, the schedule doesn't get any harder, and you were supposedly given this easy schedule, but right now it's turning out to not be so easy. But the Philadelphia Eagles are having problems of their own. But, it's still supposed to be a game in which the Browns are predicted to lose, but you never know. The Browns can, surprise you at times. So,
right.
what are your thoughts about Nick Chubb coming back, and how soon do you want to see Nick Chubb playing after coming off of this devastating injury? Because I don't want to see him playing immediately. I don't think, I'm still scared of that knee. This is the second time he's had a devastating injury on this knee. And I'm just, a little, I have a little bit of trepidation, with him getting out there and stuff like that. So, what are your thoughts about him supposedly coming back this week?
Well, Nick Chubb went to he's from down in this area. He went to
Yeah.
school at over at Cedartown, which is probably about an hour outside of Atlanta, maybe not even that long, maybe. So he's very beloved. He comes down here in the summer. That's where a lot of those workout videos that you see from Nick Chubb in the summer. He's working out over at the high school over in Cedartown. So I would say the Browns fan in me wants to see him on the field as soon as possible. The sports reporter in me that has seen these sort of things before makes me feel like maybe he should wait till next season. They have a 3 game window, I guess, to activate him before they have to hold him out for the season. He's had 2 catastrophic knee injuries. He's had one when he was at the University of Georgia, and now he's had one in the NFL. So I think in order to prolong his career where I think it could be, in order to squeeze at least maybe 2 more strong years out of his career, I think the best thing for him might be to just go ahead and sit out the rest of this season and then come back ready next year. Because when you think about it, how many really good years did you get out of a running back in the NFL? I mean, just think about it. I mean, even the really good running backs, you might have 6 to 7, maybe really strong seasons, even if you're one of the better backs in the history of the league. And I think Nick Chubb is one of those guys. So I think that he can maybe stretch this out till he's about 31, 32, 33 years old. He keeps himself in enough shape. He stays active enough. So I feel like he can really do that. And the last thing I like to see him have is to come back and hurt that knee again. Because if he does it again, then he probably won't play football again. Honestly, I was I didn't know after that hit last year, after that Monday night game against Pittsburgh when he got hurt. I didn't know if he'd come back and play again after that. So I think that he should be extremely cautious moving forward. But knowing Nick Chubb and knowing what kind of player he is, he probably wants to be out there on Sunday because that's just Nick Chubb, and that's what we love about him is the fact that he's such a determined player. He's such a determined athlete that he wants to get out there and he wants to help his team. He sees his team struggling. He sees the boost that he can give his team. So I'm sure he wants to be out there helping those guys. I just don't know if that's the best thing for for the um, for the outlook on his career.
Yeah, and he is 28 years old. I didn't even realize his birthday was the day after mine. So he's 28 years
Yeah,
old. So you're asking him for another 4 years. We know
that's
that
gonna be
running
tough.
backs, yeah, running backs start to decline, around that 29, 30,
Yeah,
maybe 28 range. Like you said, you can get about 6 good years out of them. But, like
yeah,
you said, if he continues to take care of his body and he doesn't stay hurt, obviously, he ain't gonna be able to start forever, but he can be serviceable for you. So, do
yeah.
you think that if he does come back, that kick starts and ignites this team at all?
Yeah, I mean, I think if nothing else, from a mental standpoint, right? I mean, to see one of your best players and just one of the most loved guys on the team, maybe certainly since they came back in 1999, maybe ever, to have one of the most loved players back for you, just seeing how he works. Yeah, I mean, I think that could be inspiring enough to be able to lift the guys up to playing better. But as far as the impact on the field, yeah, I mean, if he's still the Nick Chubb that we know and we love, he'll give the offense a big boost. He'll give Deshaun Watson a big boost. He'll give that play action offense that Kevin Stefanski wants to run a big boost. So, sure. I mean, I think from a football standpoint and from a mental standpoint, if he does come back ready to play and if he is the Nick Chubb of old, then he will give this offense a substantial boost of production and a tremendous morale boost, too, which I think they're in desperate need of right now.
hmm Yeah. So if he does play this year, obviously you're going to have to put him on a run count. So
Yeah.
he's not going to be playing as much as we would like him to, as much as we
No.
would need him to. So you're going to have to rely on Jerome Ford and his development as a running back. What are your thoughts about Jerome Ford?
I think Jerome Ford is just a regular your average run of the mill NFL back, right? I mean, he's nothing special. I think ideally he'd be a backup, rotational back. I think he does some good things, but I don't think he's a starting back in the NFL, the kind of guy that you want to give a bunch of carries to or a bunch of touches to. I think he's a quality player he's a quality change of pace player. I think if you have a really good back like Nick Chubb or a really good starting back, or if you have a committee of backs that you have on your team, he's one of those committee sort of backs, right? I mean, he can do a lot of what you need him to do. He can catch out the backfield. He can run. He's not spectacular. He's not a game changing player, but I think that he's the kind of guy that can. I thought he did fine last year, right? I mean, he was starting back last year and we won 11 football games. So I mean, I don't think he's a bad player by any stretch, but he's not a difference maker the way Nick Chubb is.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and move on to the Ohio State University before we take another break.
Yeah,
So, Ohio State got out to a little bit of a slow start
yeah.
against Michigan State, and I did put on Facebook they better win this game. I
Yeah.
didn't. I know I didn't like the way it was looking, and lots of times Michigan State has played spoiler. I was there in
Yeah.
1998. Joe Germain was trying to get the
I
ball to
remember that.
David Austin, and literally you could hear a pin drop in that
Yeah.
stadium. And I knew two people who played for Michigan State, so at the end of the game, we were waiting for them. But Michigan State has played spoiler a few times against Ohio State, so I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't like this. Ohio State, has been playing against a bunch of cupcakes, and this was their first, real test, on the road, nighttime game, rowdy crowd, so they passed that test. What are your thoughts about how Ohio State has looked so far?
I mean, they look great, right? I mean, they look like they're one of the most talented teams in the country, but I think we knew that coming in. I mean, I think the question I had was the quarterback position with
Mhm.
Will Howard, and they didn't
I'm
need
still
great.
not in love with him.
No, yeah, and I can see why, but I think what they needed was just competent quarterback level play, right? I mean, they don't need great quarterback play. They have weapons all around the quarterback. I mean, you have first round picks. You have obviously Mecca Ibuku's going to be a future first round pick, and he might not even be the most skilled receiver on the team. When you look at Jeremiah Smith and what he's been able to do first couple games, I mean, he looks like the second coming of. He looks like he's right in that mode of guys like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. He probably more physically gifted than all those guys, right? So
Mhm.
obviously a wide receiver. They have plenty of talent there, talent on the offensive line, tight end, maybe definitely two draft picks in the backfield with Travian Henderson and Who's the guy? I can't think of the number one, the guy they got from Ole Miss. I don't know. Why I can't think of his name.
Oh yeah,
I don't know why. I don't know why I can't think of his name right now. Quinshawn Judkins.
yeah.
Right. Yeah, they got Judkins. So yeah, I mean, there's talent all around on the offense. So I knew Ohio State was one of the probably top five most talented teams in the country. You really couldn't tell by watching the first few games just because they were playing against teams that they were expected to beat by 50. So like you said, this was the first true test. But when I look at their schedule, I see maybe two games that I look at and I go, you're not really sure about. Now, one is the Oregon game. I mean, that's the one that you look at and you go, that could be a tough one,
Mhm.
depending on
Yeah,
how ready they are. And then Michigan. I mean, really, to me, those are the only games I look at. And I look on the schedule and I go, and with the way Michigan's looking this year, if you're Ryan Day and you can't beat Michigan this season, I don't know that Ryan Day is going to have a job next year. Because
nah.
Michigan looks about as beatable as they have since before Jim Harbaugh. So if you can't get it done this year against Michigan, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I mean, I feel like if Ohio State can get through that game against Oregon, I think they'll be smooth sailing.
Connor Stallions is gone, so they better not lose to Michigan. Did you
Yeah,
did you watch
yeah.
the Connor Stallion story on Netflix?
I haven't watched it much, but I know the story and everything. So yeah.
Yeah, it's excellent. It was actually produced by LeBron James and Maverick Carter, but
Okay.
it's an
Yeah,
excellent watch. So, if you get a
I'm gonna
chance
check
on
it out.
Netflix, watch it. Yeah. So, like you said, the test it'll be against Oregon. Time zone difference, hostile environment.
Yeah,
New to the Big Ten, so that's definitely going to be a test. But they should be able to beat Michigan this year. I'm settling for nothing less. But
yeah.
before we go to break, the game, and it might be the game of the year, was Alabama versus Georgia. So that game was
Oh yeah.
amazing. And I hate both teams, but that was a great game. And I was pulling for Alabama as much as I hate Alabama. I hate them both. But I'm still mad about 2000 and what was it, 2022 at the
A
end of
couple
the
years
season?
ago when Georgia beat
Yeah,
Ohio State. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
and they didn't call that targeting penalty, so I still haven't gotten over that. So we're going to go ahead and take a break really quick, and then when we come back, Scott, we're going to talk some Guardians and we're going to talk some playoffs. So
Okay,
we're going
cool.
to be right back. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. You're listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM. Cleveland K was not able to join us today, but I do have Scott Pennyman, our special guest today. And Scott is a sports reporter out of Atlanta, originally from Cleveland, Ohio, but he follows Cleveland sports just like he still lives here. So, Scott, moving on to the Cleveland Guardians. Are you sold that this team can make it to the World Series?
I wouldn't call it sold, but I mean, they seem to have something special about them this year, right? I mean, I haven't followed them as closely as you have because you've been there, but just kind of watching from a distance, when you see how they follow that manager, Stephen Voigt, and it just it seemed like they kind of had that momentum to start the season, and they just kept it going through the whole season. So yeah, I mean, I think there seems to be something magical about this team and where they're at. Now, obviously, it's going to be hard when you have the Yankees and all that stuff in the American League, but I think there, there seems to be a lot of similarities between this team and that team in 2016. Just kind of how they've been. So I do buy them as being a legit World Series and World Series championship contender. Um, and I think they have as good a chance as anybody, right? So I'm buying it. I'm buying the hype right now, but it's been so elusive. I mean, we've seen. I know in my lifetime, I've seen them have late leads in a game 7 of a World Series and find a way to let it slip. So it's really hard to say for sure whether you think they can really do it. But I think just when you look at what the team has and obviously, Jose Ramirez, the special season he's had and everything, I think they're positioned as well as anyone to be able to get it done.
Or a 3 game lead and blown that. And I never
Yeah,
talk about Golden State blowing that 3-1 lead because the same thing happened to Cleveland just a couple months later. So
yeah,
I never talked about that. But one of the things that I hate about certain sports leagues is that they need the popular teams to be good. The NFL needs Dallas to be good. They
yeah,
need they need New England to be good and teams
yeah,
like that. They need the New York teams to be good. And then when basketball, they need Boston and LA to be good. And, they just kind of, dog, small market teams and things of that nature. So, that's one of the things that makes me mad is they need the Yankees to be good. And the Yankees haven't made it there since 2009. And, that's the last time they won a World Series. So,
yeah,
the Yankees, last year was one of the best teams in the league and they faltered in the playoffs. But, Cleveland has, struggled against the New York Yankees. And I think, it's in their mind right now. The
yeah,
Yankees, own real space in the Cleveland Guardians' head. And I don't want to see Houston. We just saw Houston this weekend. We lost the series, 2 games. Yesterday got ran out. So Jose Ramirez will not be joining the 40-40 club. He was at 39-39.
yeah,
So 39 home runs, 39 bases stolen. So, he didn't have the opportunity to join that club because that game was rained out. But I just don't want to see, Houston because they know how to win. Are they still cheating still? I don't know. They could be, who knows. But
yeah,
but the Guardians have struggled against them and these games didn't mean anything this weekend.
yeah,
But I said it would be a good indicator to see where they're at against this team. And, Houston came out and took both games against the Guardians. So I was not too thrilled about that. I definitely don't want to see the Yankees. Cleveland had every opportunity to be the home team, throughout the whole playoffs. So, you think about, that
yeah,
8 game stretch that they went on where they lost 8 games and then another 7 game, stretch. You had every opportunity to be the home team and have a better record than the New York Yankees. So I'm kind of sad about them losing home field advantage.
yeah,
So there's a lot of things going in, and you mentioned Stephen Vogt and this team, really getting behind him. And, Stephen Vogt, got a little bit teary eyed during the press conference, and he talked about, how much he loved this team. And as this team goes, he goes as well. So, you got to look at him as a candidate for manager of the year.
for
This
sure,
is his
for
first
sure.
year, and, the Cleveland Guardians, for a good portion of the season was playing out of their mind and they were beating everybody, except for the Yankees. I don't know what it is about this team, and they can strike out Aaron Judge a lot. So one of the things, about this team too is that starting rotation. You need a lot out of them. You also
Yeah,
need, your batting order, the 7, 8, and 9 to be able to produce for you. It can't just always be,
for sure.
Jose Josh. You got Stephen Kwan back. So, that was definitely a good thing to help. He's your leadoff hitter. So,
Yeah.
getting him back was definitely a good thing because he's had some back issues. But, you need more. You need more people to step up. One of the, guys that I like a lot is Kyle Manzardo. So, if he does get some playing time, hopefully he can get bat on ball and, go yard. So I think that that definitely would be a great thing if, you're able to have some of these players step up. Just like you had in, what was it, 2022, you had new players step up and,
Yeah.
make it to the playoffs and stuff like that. So, you got a World Series prediction?
Oh, that's tough. All right. So looking at the National League, I'm gonna say the Dodgers. I'm gonna say the Dodgers in the National League. I mean, they're playing some really good ball. That was kind of my pick to start the season. Honestly, was the Dodgers. So I'm gonna go ahead and hang with them. And I'm picking Guardians from the. I'm going Guardians versus Dodgers. Yeah, that's my prediction. But hopefully I don't jinx them. So maybe I'll pick the Yankees.
Because I believe that the Cleveland Guardians won the series against LA when they were out there. I believe they took it 2 games to 1, or maybe it was 1 game to 2. I think that they won that first game of that series, so they came out, all cylinders ablazing, and then I think they lost the 2 games. So, hey, being out there and able to take a game from them, they
Big,
also got to go through Philadelphia. So, Philadelphia, has a
really
tendency to
good.
go a little bit, with Bryce Harper and stuff like that. So we'll
Yeah,
see what Philadelphia will be able to do. So I think you can expect, maybe the Dodgers, but the Dodgers be choking too, and Shohei Otani, had 50-50, which is just incredible.
yeah,
One of the best,
for sure.
players in baseball. But I definitely think the Cleveland Guardians can do it. Like I said, you need more out of certain players, and you need other players to be able to step up. That 2016 team, they were a home run hitting team.
They
And you're
were.
really not getting that out of this team right now. You're getting it out of certain players on occasion who have went through slumps. But, I don't know. This team wasn't, hitting. This team this year wasn't hitting, because you got Bo Naylor who's hitting, a little bit over 200. So you need, and he's going to be your
Need more
catcher,
from them.
calling the
Yeah,
game. So yeah, you definitely are going to need more from Bo. So, I believe that they can do it. So they play this Saturday. So they get the winner of Detroit and Houston. So we're definitely going to see what happens, and then we'll know who I was going to say we'll know who the Cavs go against, but we'll know who they go against in a couple days. Cleveland Cavaliers had media
yeah.
day today. So October 8th is their first preseason game, and their first game is October 23rd against the Raptors. Man, it seems like the season just ended. It
Right. I mean,
literally
basketball
did. And
season
they get
forever.
going again. But they have like an 8-month season.
Yeah, I mean, it lasts forever, but hopefully it can last even longer, right? I mean, hopefully the Cavs can, just real quick about them. I mean, hopefully they can make that jump to being a conference finals team. It's going to be hard because a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference have improved, so it's going to be really hard for them to even get back to the second round this year because I think the Eastern Conference improved so much.
hmm Well, Scott, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on Her in the Huddle today. You were amazing. Thank you so much for taking your time out. You've
Thank
been
you.
listening to Her in the Huddle on WOVU 95.9 FM, and we are out of here.